people can see it too.
My wife, you know, bless her heart, she's a Democrat, but she voted for Obama twice, right? I know, I'm just kidding.
No.
But I knew she voted for him the first time, but then after we were married, she told me she voted for him twice, and I was like, "What? You voted for him?"
So you didn't know she voted for Obama or Romney in 12. Then.
Right. And so I was like, "How did you not vote for Romney?" You know, I'm like, "Dude had a great resume." So she's like, "I thought he was a liar. I thought he was a cheat." You know, and I was like, "Wow."
The Democratic messaging worked on that.
Evidently, right? Yeah. And so let's see here. We got that one live, and this one's live. So yeah, I just told on my wife. It's great. And so hey guys, this is another surprise entry here on our live feed. But I'm here with Christopher Hale. He's running for Congress. He's a Democrat.
I am.
Right?
I am.
And I've got. I'm going to run through these quick questions. He's got another meeting to run to. But anyway, Christopher, thanks for saying
Appreciate you having me.
Thank you very much. And so, question number one: what do you do for a living?
So my background is I've worked in politics, admittedly. So I'm from Murfreesboro originally, Rutherford County. And then after college, I went to go work for President Obama for 3 years.
All right.
So I was there.
Wow.
Yes, yeah. So
did you get the meeting?
Oh, yes. So I know the president very well.
cool.
No, Joe Biden. Actually, and have met Donald Trump.
I love Joe Biden.
You love Joe Biden?
I love Joe Biden.
He's a more popular Democrat around these parts than Barack Obama.
I'd say he's more of a traditional Southern style blue-collar Democrat.
Absolutely. He's not. He runs on working class folk.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So I did that from 11 to 14, and then I worked in the advocacy sphere from 14 for several years, and I worked in the intersection actually of faith and politics.
Okay.
And so the two things you're not allowed to talk to about over the kitchen table or on dates. That's why I'm single, perhaps.
Sure.
Are these issues, but I think they're fascinating. And so I worked on where people of faith got involved in politics. Mostly on progressive issues, but I am pro-life, so we worked on some of those issues as well.
Wow.
And so it was a moment, I really view my career through the lens of reconciliation. I try to reconcile people of different ideologies, different beliefs, and try to move the ball forward.
Okay.
I'm a Democrat who plays a good road game. So I'm a Democrat who plays well on the road, who I think I can win over conservatives, and I'm pragmatic and thoughtful. And I can count to 10. I believe in math. Actually, last year or so, I've been a Democratic commentator on Fox News. Okay. So again, so I'm unafraid to talk to conservatives. I think it's look, my party is too small to win in this state. At least in my congressional election, there's no way I'll win this election unless I win over Republicans and Trump voters. So I'm a missionary looking for votes. So.
That's awesome, man. I love it. I love it. So where do you call home right now?
Murfreesboro. So so I did work several years in Washington, D.C. I moved back home recently, but I'm from Murfreesboro. I spent 18 years here. Okay. On the day of my appointment to President Obama's White House, I told the Daily News Journal that I went to Washington to serve my community. So I always, people say, oh, he's a D.C. insider. Well, I went to do public service on behalf of Tennesseans and on behalf of Middle Tennessee. So I'm here to stay. I'm 29, so I'm one of the youngest persons. I think I'm the youngest person left in the United States running for Congress. So, like many people in their 20s, you move about and around. But I'm from Tennessee, and I plan to live here and represent this community. So.
That's awesome. All right, so let's. Do you own a house?
I am not a homeowner. Okay. So the rent situation in the District of Columbia, as you can imagine, is the highest price market in the country.
Crazy. Yeah.
I made good money, but still, it was not. It was
not good enough.
Yeah. Well, it's that situation too. One of the things on home ownership that I think is really remarkable to see is that I'm very concerned about millennial home owner rates as a millennial, because we get priced out of the market very, very quickly. Yep. And as a single person, it becomes much harder. So I get very concerned over prices, and also too the quality of home. And the East Coast is a little bit different than here, but we really need affordable housing and quality housing. I think that's why your
certainly that's a local issue that a real importance.
Absolutely, and I think and we know that home ownership in the 20th century was the heart of the middle class, the American dream, and like the work you do at helping people find housing is so crucial. And I think one of the questions maybe we'll address, but also going forward, is the federal government oftentimes gets in the way of home ownership, and I think that. I'm a Democrat who knows when there's government overreach. So I think that we need to do whatever we can to help for first-time home ownership.
Okay, that's awesome. I like it. So why are you running for office?
Yeah, it's a great question. I did work for President Obama, and when I worked for him, he gave a farewell address, and this kind of evolved over time. he gave a farewell address in Chicago that I got a chance to attend to in January 2017. Whatever you think about the man's politics, I don't think many people will argue about his character being deficient in capacity. But one of the things he said that struck me and why I worked for him originally in the campaign in 08 and 12 and in the White House was that he said that if you're disappointed in your government, join its ranks. And all I recall really, he said, pick up a clipboard and run for office. I think, and also John McCain really talked about that spirit of service in 2008 election. I find him to be inspiring as well. I'm disappointed in government. But one issue I really want to hone in on, I'm under 40, I'm 29, 18 to 40, more or less what we call millennials. We are now the biggest generation, the adult generation in the United States. There are 535 members of Congress. There are 5 millennials.
Yeah, no representation.
No representation. I don't claim identity politics, but I do think it's important to have different voices. I'll just give you the best way I would frame the politics in the United States today and why I want to join it is I would say the fight between Democrats and Republicans is over the 20th century. Think about all the social programs Democrats really championed in the 20th century, some bipartisan, some not.
Sure.
But if you look at that, you could almost argue that the Republicans want to repeal the 20th century, the Democrats want to save it. But who's talking about the 21st century? And if I can give one example, the biggest industry in the 4th district is transportation. So an outsized number of adult males are truck drivers. Where is trucking going to be in 20 years?
Scary.
And Tennessee's truck drivers are West Virginia's miners. And basically, Democrats have been out of touch.
That's really good.
It's something to think about, too. I mean, and think about what happened in West Virginia. And I think Democrats have been out of touch on these issues. Oftentimes, Democrats will tell folks in these industries that are transforming, we're sorry that history's left you behind. Become a nurse.
Go to school, right.
Become a nurse.
Yeah, that's the solution.
And I'll just say on that, just to highlight that, I think that, and Republicans, I think, are sometimes very dishonest about these jobs coming back. I'm a believer in reality, and we know that transportation is going to change. So I want to help politicians, the market, private industry, to actually keep our eye on the way forward instead of fighting over the past 100 years of American history.
Sure, that's a very good point. Who is your political hero?
Let's do both a Democrat and Republican.
Okay, can't say Reagan though. I always tell my
I'm not allowed to say Reagan.
Not to say Reagan. So.
One thing I'll say about Reagan is he was clearly the best communicator of the conservative agenda and maybe Americanism. But let's actually let's step back. Let's step back even further. So the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln. Let's think about the idea of what he had to encounter. The most divided country and the most divided country in the world, the greatest war in American history. And he had the courage to have this mix. It's intriguing because we always think of him as the great champion to beat slavery, but he also kept the republic together and he fought for that. And so the ability to hold true to one's ideals and the ideals of the nation. And he really viewed himself as a protector of the nation. And one thing I'll say about conservative values, I'm conservative on this. Our institutions are worthy of respect and protection. We must conserve them. And so I like that he was able to maintain the ideal of every man and woman being created equal in the dignity of God and the eyes of God, but also knowing that he too was responsible for preserving the nation. For the progressive, I would say that it would be, I'm Roman Catholic. I would say that John F. Kennedy, particularly. If JFK were still president of the United States, you'd be a Democrat. I'm convinced of that.
I think a lot of people would be.
And what JFK did was he put. This man is not from the middle class. He grew up in a lot of wealth, etc. But his particular eye and his idea of the Democratic Party, which is what I want to reclaim. Really, he said, "I am here to serve everyone, but I have a particular eye to those who are struggling." And there was fights about, and I think there can be fights about whether the market's the best solution for that, whether states should be involved. And I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all solution. But I would argue that a politician has a responsibility to have a particular eye towards those who are struggling. Because when I raise my left hand, take the oath of office, I say I defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. Well, defend the Constitution, you defend the people. And the greatest security we can have is a thriving working class.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that JFK and Abraham Lincoln, maybe those are two obvious answers, but I think that in particular their ability to cast a vision and get things done.
Yeah, very good point. Let's see. Moving along here. My great question. What do you think of Donald Trump?
Look, number one, I met Donald Trump on several occasions. And let me just say this. I think that what's remarkable about Donald Trump is that the man very deeply, and I would disagree with his means, his methods, and his outcomes, but very deeply understands the psyches of so many Americans that were ignored by my party. I think my parties, Donald Trump destroyed the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And now there's this competition. We actually are in a leaderless state in both parties. And there's a competition for what these parties look like. And to some degree, once again, I disagree with the means, the methods, and the outcomes. I think it was good that we imploded the parties and have this. We now have on both sides this competition for what the parties are. And so I actually believe the persona of the working class billionaire, because for some reason, well, I actually think it's pretty clear. He was never accepted. So to get into the geography of New York City for a second, he's from the Bronx. Okay. And the Bronx is the outside skirts of Manhattan. Right. And so his father's a real estate developer, and he tells me this. He told me the story. His father's a real estate developer in the Bronx, but he never was able. He breaks into Manhattan and makes a lot of money, but he was never able to break in socially. And so when I talk to cab drivers when I was in Washington, New York City to visit him, but also when I talk to working class folks, there's a sense that though he is means well beyond them, that emotionally and psychologically he understands them, and I buy that. He created a reality TV show that was meant for middle class America. But what I dislike about him very deeply is I don't think he's conservative. And if you're voting for Donald Trump because he's conservative, you got the wrong guy. I mean, Donald Trump. It's funny how when you're out of power, you hate debt, deficits, spending. But when your party comes into power, all bets are off. That's all. We got to govern somehow, man. And so Donald Trump's increased the government spending significantly, and I think if you're conservative, you should be concerned about that. Certainly. So I disagree with the idea he's conservative. I disagree with the idea that he and his values and policy actually truly represents what is best for working class Americans. However, I think I find him to be a remarkable politician. Yep.
I agree. I can agree with all that. What are your plans if you win this elected office? What do you want to do?
I would say, like every Democrat, we're focused on really three things: jobs, healthcare, and education. Here's my concern. We live in the 4th district, so we stretch from Spring Hill all the way out to Cleveland. Murfreesboro is doing really well. Our unemployment rate is at 2.8%. But very quickly, when you get further out into rural America, there is deep problems. There's joblessness. There's the opioids crisis. There's other issues with infrastructure and jobs. My sense of it is, I think that Donald Trump was signing this bill absolutely with the American Recovery Act, which meant a lot to this community and Nashville, building our infrastructure. That was really skewed towards urban America and suburban America. I think we need an investment. I think the federal government should make investments, but I think there should be private industry investment, private healthcare investment in rural America. And it very deeply concerns me because the experience of Tennessee in this district, but I think statewide, is 2 Tennessees. There's those who are doing very well in suburban and urban Tennessee. Nashville's thriving beyond belief. But then there is those who have been left out and left behind. A lot of those folks who voted for Donald Trump. And I think I'm the candidate of the Democratic Party who can find Trump Hale voters, because I want to have a particular focus on the rural America that the Democratic Party has absurdly left behind.
Sure. I agree. There's something about that, and I don't know how you fix it, but you're right. There's a different economy going on in these outlying counties.
And I think one of the things I'll say on that is the access to the necessities of life. Maternal death rate is, I think if you're pro-life, you should be concerned about this. If you're conservative, every Tennessee should be concerned. Maternal and baby death rates in rural Tennessee are equivalent to the Middle East, like Iraq, et cetera. Wow. And because it's access to healthcare. Sure. And I think that we need to have, I think my big goal is, no matter what zip code, I was born in 37129, what zip code you're born in, I just want an equality of opportunity. Yeah. The chance to move forward in life.
Sure. What is your favorite charity?
I'm Roman Catholic, so I'll name 2. Catholic charities, and I'll say actually Catholic Relief Services, and then I would say World Vision, which I think maybe some in the ecumenical Christian movement know.
Yeah, I give money to it every month.
I actually have worked as an ambassador for World Vision.
Oh, wow.
And what's interesting about both organizations is this is a good example of conservatives should like this, of Americans' generosity, actually investing in places overseas that are really struggling. And it's not just a charitable gift, it's an investment. Right. We're investing in World Vision, invest in infrastructure, access to clean water, development of rural economies, schools, etc. And we are using the bounties of the American continent to help other countries move forward. And as a Christian, I think that is a profound call to do.
And from an economic standpoint, your return on your investment is huge in those areas.
Your ROI personally, your ROI as a country.
Sure.
The really famous program that Dwight D. Eisenhower started that's been pushed back a little. It's called Food for Peace. And think about what he's thinking there. So Dwight D. Eisenhower was the last general military man to serve as president. From his idea, when we invested in the economic development of overseas countries, we were actually providing for peace for the United States. It was yes, it was charitable and thoughtful, but it's also about our security, our well-being.
That's right. I agree. That's a really good point. All right. So if you could go back in time and talk to 17-year-old Christopher Hale, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
I would say two things. Number one, be more thoughtful on what you give yourself to. I think that particularly my undergraduate self, there's actually a famous real estate investor talks about the book, The One Thing. Are you familiar with that? Keller, right?
Yes.
And we'll go with that. So Keller says that we give ourselves to too many things that do not matter. And so I feel that I've spent too much of the past 12 years getting caught up in the thick of the things instead of giving myself fully to one or two things. And so I would say be more conscious about what I give myself to, the time that I give myself to. The second thing is I would say be more open to the fact, I think the 17 to 29 period is probably the period of naivety and stubbornness about the world that I live in. I have been, as I got older and older, I've become more and more aware of my faults and more aware of the stubbornness of my thoughts, of how I do things. I think that I think one of my skill sets is spending time with people who think differently of me. And that was a response to me being too rigid in my ways. The reality of it is, for our country and for our community, there is no Republican solution or Democratic solution alone. The best projects in American history that really have meant so much to our country have always included everyone, and they've been bipartisan in nature. And my big concern is that our current incumbent, Scott DesJarlais, brags about being the most conservative member of Congress, but in 8 years or 9 years in office, I know the amount exactly, he's received $1,277,865 in salary, and he shepherded one bill through the House to rename a building after James K. Polk. Bart Gordon did that in his first year. He named several buildings in his first year. But I think that I want to be the most thoughtful member of Congress who is driven by results and not ideology. I want to bring home wins.
Sure.
Donald Trump.
How about more Greenway, right? That's what Bart Gordon gave us, right?
Well, absolutely. And I think what's interesting, if I can give an example with Mr. DesJarlais, who maybe we'll interview at a later point, the issue is I'm just not convinced he's very good at what he does. And let me give you my best claim. In Murfreesboro City Schools, we can agree, I think, every American, every Tennessean can agree that a child is not deserving of poverty. If they live in poverty, you cannot blame them. So one of the great equalizers of society is education. Good schools are the means, for me, is a means of social mobility, and for each and every American, it should be. Scott DesJarlais cut $12 million from free and reduced lunches in Murfreesboro. So 5 city schools lost free and reduced lunches. Now, here's the thing about it. When we called his office and we figured out this, they did not notice it happened. They were, because you can be a congressman and literally run your entire day off a note card where the party tells you to vote.
Sure.
And I've seen it. I've worked very close with members of Congress in my career. The good congressman does not operate off a note card. he or she gets into the weeds and understands deeply what happens. And Scott Desjardins has been unable to do that. And we paid him $1.3 million. We should get an ROI. What's our results?
Very good issue there. What do you do for fun?
I'm not very fun. No, I would say that I really enjoy meeting new people. I think one of the best things to do is go to a bar and I like Jack Daniels and talk about things that matter. I am not very good at talking about the weather.
Okay.
I am much better at talking about religion and politics, but I very deeply enjoy understanding someone else's worldview. And I enjoy just meeting people. I think that one of the blessings that I've had in my life is the variety of experiences. I've been to Iraq. I've been to the border of Syria and Lebanon with World Vision, et cetera, and other places. And I've been able to learn a lot from other people. So the more different you are from me, in a lot of ways, the more excited I am to hang out with you, so I can learn from you.
Right.
So
that's great. And then my last question is, what's your favorite restaurant in Murfreesboro? That's the hardest one.
Well, this might people will not be impressed by the quality. Perhaps this is there's 2 chain restaurants that mean a lot to me. Look, I've spent there's no doubt about it, I spent the majority of the past 10 years away from Murfreesboro. As a child, I really enjoyed going to O'Charlie's. I really enjoyed going to O'Charlie's for rolls. So every year I was in college in Ohio, and the past several years in the District of Columbia, I've gone absurd amounts of distances for my birthday to go to O'Charlie's.
Okay.
The second restaurant would be Toots. I mean, good food and fun. The place for family and friends. And if I could add a third one, it would be Demon's. So I do enjoy chains. I guess I'm not an elite eater. So I like the good middle class restaurants. So
those are the most popular restaurants that you listed. They're very popular.
Well, perfect.
So you got your finger on the pulse, man. That's
exactly.
Good.
Well, I appreciate you having me. And I'll say to your watchers here, I think that I imagine many of you are conservative. Don't count me out. I'm just 2 questions for you that I think is important to ask. Do you think, number one, I'm a credible witness to the worldview you have? Do we see a lot of the things in the same way? And do you think, number 2, I'm a viable alternative to what we currently have? I think we need new voices, a new generation who's looking forward instead of fighting about the past. And I hope you consider me.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Christopher.
Appreciate it.